Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. I am Sean Anderson, Most Valuable Podcast, and the upcoming segment is from our full Fast Break podcast that we recorded. And if you do want to check out that full podcast, head over to Blog Talk Radio/The Fast Break. You'll be able to find the full podcast over there.
This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. This is a Fast Break Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Anderson. Alongside me, as always, is Ricky Over.
What's up, guys?
And Dave Oster.
Hey, everybody.
And today we're talking about the NBA Finals. We're going to be previewing it, doing it a little bit differently. Usually we do, either one person or it would have been Dave and I doing a sit-down video in front of the green screen, but we're going to do it on the podcast because why not? What's a better
Give them an in-depth sight into it instead of a quick, 3-minute video.
Exactly.
You guys need it.
25 minutes talking about the NBA Finals because we know we can do it. Then we're also going to be talking about CP3 possibly going to the Spurs. The Spurs want to bring him in, so we'll talk about that. And we're also going to be talking about Magic Johnson saying that Brandon Ingram is untouchable. And let's get into this Finals talk because this is the matchup that, Ricky, you were saying before we even started that this was the most hyped matchup because like Dave and I and you were saying that we were pretty much knew this was going to be the Finals after last year's Finals ended. We knew that we were going to get Golden State and Cleveland.
I believe in our preview video I said that just wake me up in June. Wake me up in June when the finals start, and then we'll be okay.
Well, it's starting on June 1st. we got the Cavs versus the Golden State Warriors for the third time. Warriors won the first one. We knew the whole story there. Kyrie and K-Love out, and then last year, obviously, I think 3-1 lead. Does that sound familiar?
Anyone remember 3-1?
Anyways, so we got
the Cubs won.
We got the 1-1. We got the Cubs did do that too. 1-1. We got the Warriors taking on the Cavs here. And the big question is looking into this and looking at the start of it, who should be looked at as the favorite? Should it be the defending champs in the Cleveland Cavaliers, or should it be the loaded Golden State Warriors with the new addition of Kevin Durant?
I mean, how do you not favor Golden State after what they've done to the
12-0
Western
in the
Conference?
12-0?
12-1 wasn't bad.
And not
But you lost to
convincing
the
fashion.
Celtics.
I know.
To be fair, every team they went up to, I think, had an injury, though, like Golden State. So, I mean, yeah, they might not face people at their best, but they still destroyed teams, and the margin was not even close. So the problem is, all the talk about a league being balanced and level of competition, but adding Kevin Durant to one of the best teams, it breaks the West. It breaks the NBA.
One of the best teams already in history, and you add Kevin Durant, who's arguably second best player, third best player in the league, whoever you really have. I mean, obviously LeBron's number one. You have Kevin Durant not too far behind there in best rankings. Ricky, looking at this, who should be looked as his favorite? Should it be LeBron? I mean, he is the best player in the world.
I think it's the Warriors, and the reason why I say that is not only on paper do I look at their team and I go, if I'm looking just on paper, I'm going with the Warriors because of everything they have. They have, to me, 4 superstars compared to only 3 of the Cavaliers, but also because of the fact that I know you said, 12-1 isn't so bad, but the Cavaliers lost at home, a place where, once they were up 2-0, we're like, well, they're not going to lose a game. They lose to the Celtics without IT, who is arguably the Celtics' best player on their squad. They go ahead and lose. I know it was on a last-second shot, but you go ahead and lose to a Celtics team when the Warriors, like Dave said, except for one half when Kawhi was playing, they blew everyone out.
It was 3 quarters. 3 quarters that Kawhi was playing, and if Kawhi finished that game out, they would have won that series, and there wouldn't be the 12-0 Warriors. And then also looking at the Cavs there, it was the regular season Cavs. They showed up, they reared their ugly head coming back, and they showed that one game in Game 3. I mean,
arguably though, the Celtics are a better team without Isaiah Thomas.
They are. I'm just saying. People. That's why I said arguably their best player.
But anyways, looking at this, I don't disagree with you. You look at the Warriors. They mowed through everybody.
I don't disagree with you. The Celtics are better without IT.
The Warriors mowed through everybody. I don't disagree with you there. And you look at the Warriors. I mean, again, the addition of Kevin Durant. I think they should be favorited. I mean, they were favorited last year. They were favored the year before. I mean, nothing really has changed on the Cavs side. They added Kyle Korver. They added Darren Williams. They added Derek Williams, all these players, but they didn't really add a player like a Kevin Durant, and Kevin Durant creates so many different matchup problems. But then looking at this, we see the Warriors as the favorite, but that doesn't mean that the Cavs have no shot. The Cavs definitely have a shot. Dave, looking at this matchup, what is the Cavs' best chance at beating the Warriors. So you're looking at this, every single game, night in, night out. What's the way the Cavs should be attacking this Golden State offense, this Golden State defense? What should they really be looking at?
Honestly, defensively, their best bet is to continue to stifle Klay Thompson. He's a player who is very hot and cold, and he's been pretty cold throughout the whole playoffs consistently. So honestly, if they can make an effort to keep him quiet early on, I think it gives them their best chance. Matchup-wise, Kevin Durant can score when he wants to score. I don't care who's guarding him. It's just fact at this point. He's taken less shots, but he's more efficient, and it's disgusting. Curry will make mistakes offensively, so if you let Kyrie pressure him, I'm pretty happy with that matchup still. The big question comes down to how much of a factor is Draymond Green going to be down low? And, we saw what he can do, not only down low, but also stretching the floor. When he got hot last year and just started nailing threes.
Well, that game 7 for Draymond, he
it was insane.
We talk about LeBron James' performances in game 7. Draymond was just outshadowed. Draymond wasn't too far from a triple-double in that game himself. Looking at defense, I think we saw a lot of exploitations. Even, just looking at that Celtics, with IT, without IT, you saw a lot of ball movement, and that hurt the Cavs. It's just something where there was so much ball movement that it hurt. And even Ty Lue saying that the Celtics are a harder team to defend than the Warriors. So, Ricky, taking that in, do you agree that defensively that's where the Cavs should be attacking, or are you looking more on Golden State side and saying that ball movement is going to be the key to, really exploiting this Cavs defense that people are saying is weak?
I think the biggest thing for the Cavaliers, and it's the weird thing about this is, the Cavaliers already know what they have to do, because even with KD, the biggest change from last year to this year, you still defend the Warriors the same way. They're still the same team at a core. To me, communication on the court is going to be their biggest thing, because you talk about ball movement, that's all the Warriors do, whether it's off of screens, whether it's who's getting the ball, who's going what, who's screening, what do you have to do to change to it. You have to be perfect with your communication with each other and really anticipate, okay, this person's coming off a screen. I got to go with him. Both of us can't go with Zaza coming in because, Steph Curry's wide open. And to me, I look at this Cavs team, and LeBron's going to step up. I don't expect LeBron to get sick again and only put up 6 points. I say that because, Jordan dropped how many when he was sick, but no big deal. But he's going to show up. I expect Love and Kyrie to be there with him. It's all the role players. How is Kyle Korver? Kyle Korver's got to shoot well. If he shoots well from beyond the arc, that can kind of neutralize some threes that you're going to get on the Warriors side. Also, Darren Williams. What if LeBron has to come out again like he was in foul trouble? The Warriors are a team that, you saw the Celtics when LeBron wasn't out there. Yeah, they got up to a 16-point lead, but Kyrie neutralized it, and it was only a 10-point lead going into the half. The Warriors aren't going to let you neutralize it as much. They're a team that can flip the switch and go up from 10 to 25 in the blink of an eye.
So then taking in all that, obviously communication is big. Looking at LeBron James and the factor that he is, because you mentioned the 11-point game, not the 6-point game. Just saying, he didn't put up only 6 points. He put up 11.
I'm just saying, Jordan had a better sick performance.
Yeah, and right now LeBron's having one of the best postseasons ever.
I know. It's just a little stab, a little jab.
Yeah, well,
let me have it.
And I'm giving one back. But looking at LeBron, looking at what he's been able to do, we talk about the postseason, what he's been able to do so far. 32 points per game. You look at 8 rebounds per game, 7 assists per game. He's doing 2.2 steals per game, 1.4 blocks per game. We know he's the greatest player on earth right now. Shooting 56% from the field, 42% from 3, putting up around nearly similar free throw averages around his career, shooting 71%. We know he's the best player on the floor, but is it enough this year with the addition of KD to be able to overcome this? Because we saw last year that those last 3 games, LeBron took over. Yes, Kyrie was fantastic in those last 3 games as well, but you look at LeBron's performance on both the offensive side and defensive side, LeBron was unreal. We just kind of stopped arguing who's the best player in the world. Just now it's LeBron, and we know it's LeBron. We know not to question LeBron. So looking at this, how much is the LeBron factor, and does he really need to carry this team for the next 7, 6, 5 games, 4 games, whatever, how long it is, for the next? Because we know how for the next couple games, because we know Kyrie can step up. We know K-Love has been stepping up recently, but then also Kyrie in that last game twisted his ankle and that looked wobbly. You look at K-Love, he's got back problems. So does LeBron really need to carry this team like he's done the past 2 finals?
Yes, and the reason why is I'm going to use last year's finals as the example. When you think back to last year, when I say 2016 NBA Finals, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
3-1 lead.
The first thing. That's not the first thing that comes to my mind. The one is the block.
I think of the stupid meme of 3-1 lead.
The Iguodala block is the thing that I think of. And to kind of go with the question that you asked, that block alone, do you remember the beginning of that series when it got to 3-1? How we're like, man, this is kind of this isn't the NBA Finals that we were thinking about. And then, boom, the last thing we remember is the Iguodala block. And oh my God, this series was amazing.
First off, that series was amazing. Yep. Second of all,
not when it was 3-1.
Yeah, and then you had the 3-1 comeback, and it was amazing. First off, I'm surprised that you didn't mention that Kyrie was the moment, because I know you were giving Kyrie a ton of shit saying LeBron didn't take the final shot.
So, Ricky, like you were saying, as far as LeBron being that block being such a moment in the series, and that's what LeBron James can do. He can take over in one moment and change the way the game is going. He can kill all momentum for the other team. He can just become bigger than the game itself, almost on the floor, and in one snap second like that. And honestly, for me, that's why he is not only not just the stats, but his presence on the floor. He is one of the most commanding players. I think probably the most important guy on the court for any team, because normally you see coaches kind of being the guys who sway the momentum. They get the team, back in momentum. They know when to stop the game, and that's the thing. He is the coach out there.
And if you think Ty Lue's the coach,
he can do that on the fly,
and the GM,
and the GM, and everything else,
and the mayor,
and the owner.
So, like, the importance of him being on the court and being able to do that, and him knowing that he's been through this situation before. He's been to the finals. He knows the matchup with the Warriors. I feel like it's almost an advantage that the Warriors lose out on because of Steve Kerr's health. Because Steve Kerr was such a smart head coach, and he knew how to do smart timeouts, great lineup rotations, and, it was just extremely well-timed. And it was like, you look back and you're like, man, he knew, like, he didn't let it get out of hand. He knew exactly when to stop it, when to kill the other team's momentum. And LeBron James doing that on the court for the Cavs versus them missing out on Steve Kerr, I think it's not a direct matchup, but I feel like it really is.
Yeah, and that's one thing I want to get to real quick, because I was going to mention, who's the Warriors player that we should really be focusing us on. I mean, obviously we look at the Cavs. It should be LeBron James, but I want to go to that point just because we ended up bringing it up. Steve Kerr, I forget when the last game he coached was. I think it was either the second game of that Portland series. It was right the third or second game in the Portland series. Then Mike Brown took over. Hasn't coached since, and pretty much the reports are saying that nothing's changed. He's in the same spot right here. So looking at the matchup of Mike Brown, LeBron's former coach, and Ty Lue, and then LeBron himself, how much is that a factor? Because have you noticed, Dave, at least a huge change between Mike Brown and Steve Kerr from the Spurs series and the Jazz series prior to this? Have you noticed a huge drastic change in the way that Mike Brown and Steve Kerr have coached, or is it just more of something where Steve Kerr is more of this reassuring face, or have you noticed anything crazily different?
I'm happy you brought that up, because there is a little bit of a difference between the two. Steve Kerr commands a different presence than Mike Brown does. Mike Brown feels like he fits in with he's a player's coach. He's more of one of the guys, and I feel like on the sideline, he kind of lets things get he lets them play their game, and he tries to, only when needed, step in. And that's, he learned that from LeBron. Like, when he was coaching LeBron, it was like, I know my role. I know I only have to do this much to get there. So I'm going to let you guys take care of everything you guys already know. And I'll just be here for the little reminders. The little just, hey, think about this when you guys are doing a switch. Think about this when you're setting a screen kind of thing. The problem is that we saw the struggles early on against San Antonio when Kawhi was out there, and he didn't have an answer for it. And it makes you start to question, like, when he comes up against a problem that people on the court can't solve for you, like, how are you going to outcoach that moment? And I do have questions about that.
And Ricky, I'm going to go to you now because, Dave talking about that, looking at Mike Brown, mentioning, I think he brought up a great point when he said, letting the players do their own work. But when you run into a problem, it's really that adjustment. So looking at the Warriors, it pretty much is when all systems are go, this is the best team we've ever seen on the floor, one of the best teams we ever saw, because I know they'll bring up the Bulls. One of the best teams we've ever saw. But then, when we see the struggles, when we see Steph Curry and Klay Thompson's struggles at the end of the finals last year, where they were just, I know Steph was wobbled up, and, how Dave mentioned that Kawhi's like the most hot and cold player in
Klay,
the NBA.
yeah.
Klay. I'm sorry. Not like to say Kawhi?
Yeah.
Fucked up.
It's all good.
Anyways, Klay, how he's so hot and cold. Looking at this, is it that big of a difference? Because we know that on paper, at least on the floor, Warriors had the best five. But Is it more of they have the best 5, but then you have a better coach and who gets along better with his players, at least with Ty Lue on the floor? So is it that big of an advantage that it might balance the scales just a little bit?
Well, and that's why I'm going to answer this by going back to a question that you recently asked. The most important player to me in this series is Kevin Durant.
Okay.
Because going back to that game 1 that we saw in the Western Conference Finals, yeah, I know it was right after Kawhi came out, but for most of that second half, most of that third quarter, Steph Curry was on the bench, and the trainers were working on Steph Curry, and you had I want to say it was Mark Jackson and Van Gundy going, hey, what is he doing? Like he's walking over there. Is he going to get back out there? Meanwhile, while they're doing that, who's taking over the game for the Warriors? It's Kevin Durant, and to me, Kevin Durant needs to be that guy. If Steph Curry and Klay Thompson fall back and get cold, he needs to be the constant. And I think that it's the one thing the Cavs are going to have a little hard time adjusting to is, to me, defensive matchups. Because, of course, Kyrie is going to be put on Steph Curry. And LeBron, you can put him on Draymond or either on Durant. I would start him on Durant and put Tristan Thompson on Draymond. But then it's one of those things, okay, with Klay, who are you going to, is J.R. Smith going to be that lockdown defender against a Klay Thompson?
Where are you putting Kevin Love?
Kevin Love, then. Kevin Love
Kevin Love on Zaza, he's taking a breakdown low.
I completely forgot about Kevin Love. Actually, Kevin Love or Tristan on Draymond, because Tristan's a bigger body, though.
He's a bigger body, and if you put Kevin Love on Zaza to follow through with the pick and roll screens, honestly, that's not. I know.
I just thought it was funny because you just leaves Caleb. Yeah, I know he forgot about Caleb.
He wasn't like
so much. This wasn't like that. Oh, he wasn't like, oh, I know this up here.
I can't say that.
No, yeah. Looking at K-Love, I think at least a dark horse on this team is K-Love. At least for me, I know this wasn't the question. I'm just bringing this up, but K-Love is probably the biggest dark horse on any of the teams because we know the top 4 for the Warriors. We know that Klay, when he's on, he's unreal. He's just lights out. Steph Curry can hit from anywhere on the floor. Great floor general. You look at Draymond Green, fantastic player, just all around on both sides of the court. Kevin Durant, one of the most unstoppable scorers. And then Zaza is going to give you at least a big body. And he might grab some boards. He's not going to do anything crazy. You look at the Cavs right here. JR can get hot. He can be a microwave, and he can be decent defensively. Kyrie can be the hottest player on the floor, but then you're still going to get around 25 from a night. LeBron's going to be the best player on the court no matter what. LeBron's going to be able to facilitate, rebound, dominate on both sides of the floor. You look at Tristan Thompson. He provides a lot of energy, offensive rebounds, defensive boards. But then you look at K-Love. He's a player that can put up 6 points a night and 6 rebounds, or he can be that monster that we saw in Game 4 of 17 and 17. So I think you look at
K-Love. That's going to be the biggest difference from the Celtics series to this one. When he's on offense, who's going to be in his face? Draymond.
Well, that's the thing that I'm just looking at is, you look at K-Love, and that's why he's the X factor, because at least he can take the best defender out of the situation. He can take the best defender.
He's also not going to have wide open looks like the Celtics were like, yeah, sure, here's a wide open look.
And one thing that might change too is, maybe you see Draymond play a little bit on LeBron, and then KD goes on Kevin Durant, which might give at least Kevin Love the body size there, which is going to be an interesting factor. It's just really, how is K-Love going to respond? Are we going to get Game 7 K-Love where he dominates the boards? I'm saying last year's Game 7 where he dominates the boards, or are we just going to get shy Kevin Love from Game 2?
Stand in the corner.
He didn't play Game 2 last year. Yeah, I mean
I know where you're going.
Yeah,
with that.
K-Love can be a quiet, just little church mouse, or he could be a huge presence on the floor.
Church mouse.
Yeah, you need to get a little bit of the old Minnesota Timberwolves K-Love back.
You need to go 2020 K-Love. But looking at this, I think he's the biggest X factor. Dave, real quick, who is the most important player on the Warriors? Because you touched on Mike Brown. Is it Steph because he is at least the floor general? Is it KD like Ricky mentioned? Is it Draymond because he can do everything? What is really the most important player?
I mean, probably JaVale McGee, we can all agree, is the most important player.
I'd say so.
No. Personally, for me, I think it is Steph Curry. And it feels almost like a cop-out, but what he can do offensively, it's something else. I mean, he can pull up from anywhere inside of half court and make a shot, and he's confident about it. So it's a dangerous level of three-point shooting, coupled with the fact that he has such a creative mind as far as passing lanes are concerned, and he always thinks he can just stretch out a little bit further one way or the other and get the ball to you. Sometimes it does lead to some sloppy turnovers, But, it's the game they play, and I think that the team as a whole trusts him and trusts his decision-making.
Well, I think we talked a little bit about starting lineups. I think, on paper, easily the Warriors. I mean, they have the best 4 players in NBA history on one team. You look at the coaching matchup, we touched upon that. You got Mike Brown on the Warriors side, and we're a little bit iffy on his defensive matchups, and how can you really adjust when this team's facing pressure? Ty Lue has done that with this team before, even though he took away, he hasn't been coached for too long of the Cavs. But, winning a championship last year, going through the 3-1 comeback last year. So Ty Lue gets the advantage there in the coaching department. Also having LeBron on your side doesn't hurt you there. And then
it doesn't help at all.
Doesn't help at all. LeBron sucks. But then looking at the bench, pretty much the last frontier. We know about Chandre Livedala, the best 6-man in the world.
Honestly, though,
but that's what I wanted to mention.
It's been a little disappointing.
The Cavs have the better bench in my mind.
You think so? Because you look at Kyle Korver, you look at Channing Frye, you look at Darren Williams, all these players on the bench. Do you think
the first and the third person you mentioned are the 2 that I look at that have to help? They have to find ways to help this team, because we've seen it already with D. Will, who, first off, I got to congratulate him because in his whole NBA career, former Illini finally gets to the finals.
Hopefully he doesn't pull 2005 and lose against Sean May.
I'm rooting for the Warriors, so I wouldn't mind that. But if he won, I'd be happy for the former Fighting Illini. But he needs to be important and pick his spots, because we've seen a little bit in the game where LeBron was sick and he ran the point, but also when earlier in the playoffs when Ty Lue went to that kind of second lineup with LeBron, where it's like, what, Kyrie, K-Love, you guys are on the bench, and he threw D. Will out there to work and be that key piece in that kind of a lineup. And then Kyle Korver, he's got to be a microwave. He's got to go off from beyond the arc, because if he can shoot, like I mentioned earlier, if he can shoot threes, that's going to help neutralize any, like if he hits 5-6 threes in a game, that's going to just neutralize any threes that the Steph Curry or Klay Thompson hits, because we know the Warriors are going to jack up threes.
Dave, do you agree that with Ricky that the Cavs have a better bench?
I do. It's been really kind of a disappointing.
Even with JaVale McGee?
JaVale McGee takes them to like here. They're close. They're close, though. Look, I like the Cavs bench, and I like the fact that they've kind of taken their play style on a pivot in one season. And after watching the finals last year and understanding the value in the 3, they've refocused their entire bench to be 3-and-D.
Well, LeBron refocused it.
And that's the thing, too.
3 in the attempted D when it comes to Korver.
Is that people bring up that the Cavs have built this to beat the Warriors.
Well, LeBron has built
this. They're now out
the
shooting 3-pointers. They're better at the 3-ball than the Warriors are currently.
At least percentage-wise.
Percentage-wise. Yes. It's crazy, though, to think about that with a team that Steph Curry is going to be the all-time greatest 3-point shooter. Klay Thompson's not going to be too far behind. And Kevin Durant score from anywhere, but
Draymond can even shoot threes.
Yeah, I mean it's freakish.
Like 7 of 7 in that game 7.
The disappointing thing is Iguodala is pretty much done at this point. He can't give you much anymore. Livingston's still efficient in a short amount of time on the court, which is good, but it's really kind of gone back to you need to keep one of those 4 amazing starters on the court at all times.
It's going to be KD.
It's a balance, and you can run iso ball with KD to compensate for that lack of bench scoring.
Well, and the one thing, too, is I think we'll get to this a little bit when we give our predictions, but do you think that, and I agree with you guys, you look at Kyle Korver, you look at not Tristan Thompson, Iman Shumpert, Darren Williams, Channing Frye, Richard Jefferson, who was huge last year, hasn't played a ton of minutes. Hasn't played a ton of minutes this year.
Really, this year, though, the one thing I want to say about Richard Jefferson, and I love his Snapchat because he's a funny guy, this year has kind of felt like the kind of not retirement tour, but I'm just gonna sit here and maybe we'll get a championship kind of a season.
I mean, he's
Jefferson.
He's 36 years old. I mean, you're not expecting a lot from him.
He's kind of begged to come back at the parade and said, fuck it, why not?
Yeah. But again, looking at this, I don't disagree with you. Again, you saw the early spurts of when Kyle Korver first came over, he's shooting above 50% from 3. If he can do that and LeBron can space the floor and he can get those open shots, I mean, that's going to be a huge difference maker there. But then, again, what I want to bring up is the signing of KD. Could the signing of KD, weirdly enough, hurt the Warriors because this bench isn't as deep? You don't have Leandro Barbosa. You don't have all these players to rely on beyond Chandre Livedala. You don't have all these players behind him. So do you think the signing of KD will either help the Warriors get over, and this is where I'm asking you guys, who's going to win the finals and when? Do you think that the signing of KD will help them overcome the Cavs this time?
It's definitely going to help. I don't think we look back, no matter what the outcome is, I don't look back and go, man, if the Warriors had never signed KD, man, they would have won the finals. However, the one thing that I think of is this going to put a little bit more pressure on the Warriors? Because it's like, okay, this is what you made this signing for.
Yeah.
You made it to win, to make you not only the best team on paper, but to win the NBA Finals. And with Kevin Durant, pressure individually of, okay, big boy, this is why you made the move. You made the move here because you felt like Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and this team was going to help you win a title. If you don't win a title, kind of feels wasted in a way.
Well, are they going to win a title?
Kind of feels wasted if they don't win a title.
Are they going to win a title?
KD. I have the Warriors, and I'm going to go 6.
And who's going to be your finals MVP?
My finals MVP will be Kevin Durant.
All right, so you think he's going to step up. Dave, looking at all this, who's going to win the finals, how many games, and who's your finals MVP?
God, I want to just waffle on this thing for like another week or so to think about because
we don't have a week.
I know.
June 1st is coming up.
Ideally, I'd like to wait for Stephen A to make his pick.
He already has. He's picked the Cavaliers.
Thank God. Warriors are winning.
Yep. It's pretty much locked in.
Who's taking?
I do have the Warriors winning. I want a good series though, so I'm gonna say 6 games. And I really
not gonna go
Ricky
7?
said 6-2.
Not gonna say 7.
but the last time I said 6, it was like, oh, that's done in 4. Oh, that's done in 4. I say 5 games. Oh, that's done in 4.
Not gonna say 7.
It's just, I hope it doesn't continue with their curse of like every team they play is somebody out and the other team goes down. Like that'd be super disappointing. So. Honestly, like I've got the Warriors in 6, but I've got LeBron James MVP.
Well, one thing I want to mention is who would the injury bug hurt the most? Because we see that Kyrie twisted his ankle there.
I think Kyrie. I mean, K-Love's back is big, but
even on the Warriors side, because we saw that Steph last year bummed ankle and he was nothing in those last 3 or 4 games. I mean, like, so do you think that an injury to the big 4 of the Warriors would hurt more, or do you think an injury to Kyrie or K-Love would hurt more?
Injury to the Cavs would hurt more.
If you took out Kyrie Irving, that would be a
Steph Curry
dramatically different team. I mean,
Steph Curry, like I love D. Will, but his defense on Steph Curry would not be anywhere near Kyrie Irving.
But then you say you take out Steph, then who's going to guard Kyrie? Then you look at that, and then is Klay Thompson going to be hot or cold? And then you look at Kevin Durant, is he going to be able to handle all this pressure up against LeBron James? I think it's just I'm just throwing out the question. I'm gonna go with what got me a ton of views last time, and we got a ton of hate. And Ricky throwing headsets. Cavs in 7. LeBron's the Finals MVP because he's the best damn player in the world.
I've actually got one question for you.
Yes,
and this has to go with Kevin Durant. Now I'm going to phrase this, and I'm going to expect Sean to be his special guru and kind of understand what I'm trying to say, because I'm trying in my head to kind of word this question. Do you think with this finals, because we mentioned KD and I mentioned how there might be a little bit of pressure on him to win this, and I know it was a different team the last time he went to the finals against LeBron. Do you think if he wins the finals, we look at it and it's kind of like a knock against Harden? I know Harden was a different player, but Harden and Russ, where it's like, yeah, he couldn't win a title with you, but then he came and won a title with the Golden State Warriors and needed that much better talent around him to beat LeBron.
So is it a knock on Kevin Durant?
Is it a knock on, do we look at it, not us, but more so like KD, more of a knock on Russ and Harden, where it's like, yeah, with you guys I couldn't win. With these guys, I could.
No, because Harden's a completely different player than he was on OKC. He was he was more of a 3-and-D player there. Now he's an all-around point guard, and it's completely different there. You look at Russ, I think it's more interesting to look at Russ, but then again, you look at the team around KD compared to the team that was around Russ and KD back then, who almost beat him. The Warriors had to come back 3-1 too. Then, I mean, you look at that, the team around KD and Russ back then, there was not a lot there.
I'm talking about going back further when they played LeBron in the finals.
Yeah, what I'm saying is Harden's completely different.
I think
Harden's
it's
not
almost
the same
more
player.
of a knock on KD then, wouldn't you say? Like the fact that he couldn't take his team over LeBron, but you go to
now he could.
What is the best team on paper that has ever been assembled?
I don't think it's a knock on any. I don't think it's a knock on anybody because the knocks came when KD signed. That's like well, you're ruining the NBA. I think that's the one thing where it's not a knock on Harden or Russ because we know the struggles that Russ and KD had together playing together. But then you look at Harden. Harden's completely different than when he was in 2012. So I think that's it's not really a knock on anybody. It's my knocks came all to KD when he signed, and I think it's still a bullshit signing. But anyways, I think I got the Cavs in 7. Well, LeBron's the Finals MVP. Tell us who you think is going to be the Finals MVP. Tell us who you got winning in how many games. It should be fun. Ricky and I know we had a lot of fun watching these games last year. We're going to continue it. We're going to bring Dave in the mix this time. It should be fun. So tell us who you think is going to win the Finals in the comments down below and how many games. Thank you. Oh, shit. It's just one of our videos scared me a little bit. Don't forget to check out that one. And also don't forget to check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. But thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.